Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Well, hi friends, and welcome to another weekly wrap-up. I believe we're at week 12, and this was birthday week. OMG, it was so much fun. Thank you to everyone who sent me love, those of you who sent me gifts. I'm actually going to film my birthday book haul after this, so if you sent me something that has arrived before today, I will make sure to show it. I know there was a couple things that I was still expecting, people told me. But I have a huge stack of books that I would like to put away, so I'm going to do that today. But anyway, I don't have much else to say before we get into the books today. I mean, of course, check out the Etsy shop if you're interested in some lovely book sleeves. I always have those listed. Thank you to my patrons and channel members who make this happen. And yeah, we're going to get right into it. So when we ended off last week, I was in the middle of the Romance Takeover Readthon. I still had Saturday and Sunday of that to go. I was also doing a reread of the audiobook for Stay With Me. So I read Stay With Me in February. This was a wonderful, wonderful second entry into the Sugarland Creek series, so I'm not going to go fully into this again. I literally just talked about it, but I'm on her ARC team and the ALC team, so I did listen to the audiobook, which was done by Savannah Peachwood and Aiden Snow. It is available now. I'll link it down below if you're interested. And yeah, I loved this. It was another, I still kept this, I think it's a 4, or no, I gave this one a 5. It's a 5 and it's a 3 on the spice scale, and I love this. It's a not his baby, best friend's brother, roommates to lovers. Yeah, it's delicious. I love it. And there's this beautiful, let's see, I got a lovely copy from her. In my book haul, I'm going to show off the book box that this was with. It was beautiful. Okay, then, how did that just happen? Okay, then I snuck in the Escort's Tale. Now, this was the Patreon exclusive read of March. So, as you know, if you've been around for a while, I won't be talking about this here. You will have to go check out the Patreon at the Swooning For You support level or higher if you'd like to know my full review on this one. I will say I enjoyed this so much. It was only novella length. But I had so many like fun notes for this. I enjoyed it so much. This is an MMF bisexual romance, and it's an escort who is hired to help this married couple with, I mean, he doesn't realize he's going to be helping them with their sex life, but he gets called to do an encounter with them. And the husband happens to be a paraplegic. He is paralyzed from the waist down, and Jasper gets brought there to fuck his wife because he can't do it anymore. And this is a romance between the three of them. So if you're intrigued, go check out my review or just go pick this up. It's only novella length, and I think that particularly if you love escort romances or you love MMFs, you're going to want to read that one. I'll just say that. Then I finished up the Romance Takeover Readthon with A Soul to Steal by Opal Rain. So this was one that I'd been highly anticipating. This is book 6 in the Dustwalker Brides. This one is the first romance in the series. And this one was between Gideon and Alaron. So Alaron is the bat-winged, bat-skulled Dustwalker. He was the one who was twins with Ingram. And also he's the one who had his skull crushed in a previous book. So if you know the series, you know that the only way to fully kill a Dustwalker is to crush their skull, to break it in some way. And so this happened to Alaron, and so he is in the basically like afterlife. It's called something else. We won't go into the full details for it. And then we have our character Gideon, who is actually the adopted brother of the heroine who is with Ingram. I just forgot her name, but that's her adopted older brother. And in the previous book, there's some stuff going on that has to do with her and Ingram having to go by the underworld. And so they find out that both Alaron and Gideon are in this afterworld. And they go on a journey that leads to them not being in the underworld anymore. I don't know another way to say that. So there was a lot to love. I was very excited for this. However, I ended up being pretty let down. And I know I'm not the only one. In a lot of the reviews, there's lots of people that were let down. There's two aspects that really kind of let me down. Number one, this was ungodly long. Now, I will say, like, Opal Rain is aware how long she made this book. There's a note at the end where she, like, you know, she's kind of apologizing, but also she didn't do anything to make it easier. So I'm like, it's not like I'm gonna, you know, I'm like, it's not like I'm gonna give you a total pass for this. Like, you did this to yourself. But also it used a trope that I like sometimes in a way that was just unbearably frustrating. I don't know another way to say that. I don't. So the first half of this book, by the way, you're going to be like, Jen, what are you talking about? This is amazing. And it's because, yeah, it was. I was hooked. I loved it. Watching them fall in love in the first half of this book was beautiful. Watching them discover their bodies together. Most of the Dustwalkers, like, they're all virgins because their cocks would literally kill someone if they used them. And this one was very interesting to see some, like, anal sex happening in here and how it worked. There is a cock pocket that gets used at a scene at 1.2. Like, there's some good stuff that's done for the steamy stuff. It's never the steamy stuff that doesn't work for me. What happens is that there is then an amnesia trope in the second half. Okay, so of course I won't go into all the details, but someone forgets everything, forgets that part of them falling in love. And we then have to suffer through this complete backsliding of character. Like, I understand that we needed to make, like, this person forget, but it felt like they not only forgot, but became someone totally different. Now, again, I could understand the rationalization. Like, it's our memories, it's our experiences that make us who we are. So it just felt like not only did we take those memories away, but we changed who he was. It was very hard to see the character that I had loved in the first half now not that person anymore. So maybe you can guess who I mean by some of my hints. I even had to delete some of what I just said because I said too much of it. But either way, if you're into this series, you'll read this no matter what. You know, I'm not going to scare you away. I'm just saying, you know, I don't know, maybe wait till the audiobook for this one's out so you can get through it quicker or whatever. But this was my final book for the readathon, and, like, I really wanted to finish it because it literally covered 4 of my squares. All right, so I'll show you, because here is my pretty bingo board. This one literally covered new release, next in series, fantasy romance, and book over 500 pages. So I was gonna finish this, but it was tough. I did end up skimming quite a bit at the end because it just took us so long to get to a good place again. I just didn't like that. So I could have maybe handled the amnesia trope if we didn't take so long with it. And also if we, like, it just became so painful. Because the character who remembers, they've done so much so that they could be with their love, and then to have that person just forget and then to treat you so badly was, I don't want that kind of agony. So unfortunately, this is my least favorite book in the series, pretty handily. It's probably because I was so hyped. Okay, I won't lie, I was very hyped for this one. I only started reading this series in, like, late last year, so I was very, very excited, and I just felt let down. So I gave it a 3.5. because her writing's still beautiful. There's still lots of good stuff to love. So I gave it 3.5. It's a 4 on the spice scale. And a trigger warning, I literally said it's a very high angst. Like, it hurt. It hurt me a lot. But moving along. Next, I read The Arc of the Witch Queen of Halloween by Kresley Cole. I was blessed enough to get put on the ARC team for this. This book is coming out on Tuesday. The pre-order is live. If you live in other countries, I believe you can order the paperback already. That's what Naomi said. This is book 18.5 in Immortals After Dark, and this one is about Rook and Poppy. Now, it's right at the very, like, top of novella length, but it is still, like, a novella in purpose, if not in pages, right? Generally, we consider novellas 200 pages or less. That's just an arbitrary thing we say. This is right at 200 pages. And to not spoil anything for this, because it is only a novella, the scenario we're in is set on Halloween. I know there's plenty of people who are literally giving this 1 star on Goodreads because it didn't come out on Halloween, okay? It's fine. It's okay that it didn't come out there. I understand that that would have been best, but guess what? It'll be available for all the Halloweens after, right? Really, the date it comes out only matters so much if, you know, for the initial part of it, but this is going to be a part of the series. It can be read on Halloween forever after, right? And for what the snippets it's giving you to the story and what it's doing, it doesn't have to be read on Halloween. However, it does take place on Halloween. And we have Poppy, who is very special. I don't want to spoil anything. And then we have Rook, who we know is a demon. And he's someone who still gets summoned. Now, the summoning stuff I never really understood because we hadn't, from what I recall, really read in detail about how and why that happens and how often and blah, blah, blah. So this was very interesting to find out. This is also kind of a second chance. I wouldn't say they were, like, in love before. Of course, there's a fated maid aspect, so, like, they're meant to be. But they did have an almost thing before that got ruined by Rook being summoned. So that's what I'll say. So they've now had kind of this, like, well, at least she's had kind of an antagonism for him because, you know, she really liked him and then she felt like she got ditched by him. And there's, of course, all explanations and everything to come. So, again, I don't want to say more than that. I enjoyed some of this. Overall, I think this is one that I need to reread it. Like, when I get my physical copy, I'm going to reread this and go through it. I'm also going to wait for the audio, which she said should be following soon. Since the shorter book, Robert Peckoff, he's already working on it. It should be available soon. I just ingest Cressley Cole best through Robert Peckoff's wonderful narration. If you have listened to a single one of those books, you'll know what I'm talking about. He is the voice of Immortals After Dark for me, almost as much as Cressley at this point. So, of course, I was happy to read the ARC, but I think I'll love it more when I hear him do it, and I'll probably pick up more about it. But again, it does take place on Halloween. There is a lot of gore and creepy things. This is like what I call like a bottle episode, right? That's what a lot of novellas are. That is a term that's used in television, where you have a story where we're all stuck in one location. And in this one, it involves them being stuck in a haunted house of sorts, okay? And in this house, we face all the awful horrors of Halloween. But yeah, there's some interesting things that happen there. And if you've read The Immortals After Dark, you will know there's something special that happens to make a character the king or queen of a certain type of thing, right? You know, there's the queen of the dead, there's the king of the vampires, there's a way that they become that isn't being elected or something. And, you know, in this we have a witch queen of Halloween. So you get to see how that becomes. So, anywho, I gave this 4 stars. Like I said, it will probably go up upon rereads of this. You're still going to want to read this if you love the series. You don't need to wait till Halloween. In fact, if I'd read this on Halloween, I probably would have peed myself because there was some scary shit in here. Again, like, I think listening to this will be quite the adventure. So I gave it 4 stars. This is only a 1.5 on the spice scale. There's not a lot of time for stuff. They are in danger in this house, so we're not taking time to bone constantly, you know. Might be smart. So, yeah, it was good. You're going to want to read it if you love the series. All right, Next up, I listened to the audiobook of Storms and Secrets by Claire Kingsley. This is her most recent release in the Haven Brothers series, which is a light romantic suspense. And this one is between Zachary Haven and Marigold, who is friends with his sister Annika. She's part of the girl gang that Annika has. And she has always thought that Zachary has hated her. This is because, of course, he has secretly pined for her since high school, and he's just been, we'll just say it, he's been too chicken shit to make anything happen. And there was a time that he messed up real bad, and he felt so awkward about it that he couldn't look her in the eye ever, and so he's just ignored her. He's just ignored her for all these years, so she believes that Zach hates her, which is kind of sad, but that's how it goes. And he, feels very shy about her until a day where Zachary, he's an electrician, and he gets called into her beauty shop. I believe she owns a salon is what she does, or works at the salon. I think she owns it. He gets sent there because there's a problem with a light fixture or whatever, and he goes in, and it's not supposed to be connected to any power source, but it happens that there's a second-hand power source, and when he goes to touch it, someone happens to do something with that power source, and he gets electrocuted, lands on his ass, loses his breath, could have died, and he has a revelation. This happens very early in the book where he's like, I could have died today. Like, literally, this electricity rushing through me could have killed me. And I never told Marigold that I love her. She thinks that I don't care about her. So he has this revelation, and he is like, I'm going to tell her that I love her and that I want her. The only thing is, number one, again, he's treated her like he doesn't like her, like she's a social pariah all these years. She's not just going to fall into bed or become his girlfriend that easily. And at the same time that he's having these revelations, Marigold has just met a man named John who is new in the area. He is a land developer or a businessman of some kind, and he has a private helicopter he flies in and out of town on. And he meets her, and he asks her out on a date. He takes her on a beautiful first date. And he just seems very suave and attractive and her Prince Charming, right? He takes her away on a helicopter to a date, right? It was very Christian Grey of him, right? That's what it was. It was very Christian Grey of him to do. And she just thinks he's amazing and is like, wow, what is this? What is this life I might be entering? He's so attentive, and he sends her flowers every day, and it's just very much like that. And at the same time, Zach has had this revelation, and he's like, I love you, I want to be with you. And she's like, no, you don't. I'm dating someone. Also, you've acted like you hated me. No. And he's like, that's okay. I know you really well. I'm going to win you over. And so we now have this bit of a competing thing. Now, it didn't bother me at all, especially as we begin to know more about John, because it's not really a secret at all that this being a romantic suspense, there's something suspicious about John, okay? Now, of course, Zach is going to have to be careful how he looks into that and how he's able to share it with Marigold, because, of course, he's just going to look like a jealous wannabe boyfriend. But I thought it was handled very well. And what I really liked about this one, in comparison to the first one, which I had a good time with the first one, is that the romantic suspense element isn't necessarily something happening to them. It definitely affects their lives by the end of it, because otherwise what would be the purpose? But there's a third POV in this one again, right? There was in the first one. But this time it's not a POV of the villain of the story or the stalker or whatever. It's a POV of a girl who finds herself in a very dangerous situation. And as you read on, you will see how it's connected to Marigold and Zach and what's happening in this small town. So I really liked that. I liked how also we don't and in the beginning, Marigold might not see through John and into what's happening, but she also doesn't play dumb. When signs arise about this guy, she listens. And I really liked how that happened. And I liked Zach and Marigold. They were so cute. So again, Claire Kingsley has taken a track that's less on the smut side of her romances. There are still some sex scenes, and they aren't even necessarily fade to black. They're just nondescript, but they happen, and I still felt an amazing chemistry between them. Like, she still wrote wonderful chemistry, still wrote sexual attraction without there having to be cocks and pussy on the page, right? You know? And the listening experience is unmatched. So the audiobook was released with this book, and you can listen to that right now. And it is Samantha Brentmore, and Teddy Hamilton. There's a third person too. Dang it, I should have written that down, because there is the POV of the third person is a different person. So yeah, it was brilliant. I had a good time. This was a 4-star, a 1.5 on the spice scale, and there is some trigger warnings for sex trafficking, kidnapping, and a few other dark things as well. Okay, next up was Darkest Sin by Neva Altaj. This is book 9 in the Perfectly Imperfect series. And with this one, she has started to say you really shouldn't skip to these ones, the point that we're at now. With this one, I think you can. Like, you know, that's what an author's going to say. It is book 9, and you should read the others, because I've loved every book I've read in this series. Honestly, the first one was the weakest one, and I've loved them all. This one is my favorite, if not tied for my favorite book. It was so good. So this one is about Kai, and I think the reason why you might not want to skip is that we do get hints at Kai before, so we're very interested in him by the time we get here. However, his past, the parts of which we need to know, are shown to us in this book. So if you like what I say about this book, you could just pick this up, but really don't do that. Do yourself a favor and read this whole series. They are some pretty short mafia stories, but they've all been very powerful, and I think they're a good kind of beginner mafia, because it's not just one family that we read about. We read about Serbians and Italians and is there Irish in this? Maybe there's not, but we read about all these different factions and how they intertwine, and some of our heroes from other books are kind of like villains in other ones, and I love how she's written this series. And there's going to be one more in this series, which I'll talk about in a second, because it is set up in this book, and then she's going to do a second generation series, which she's already titled the first book in that series. So anyway, Darkest Sin, what is this one about? So in this one, we have Kai, and he is an assassin. He is almost on the sociopath side of things. He's been taught to be an assassin since he was a child. He's never really had warmth or affection in his life. He was a part of a secret military group, and now he's an assassin for hire. He gets jobs and he completes them. He is pretty soulless about it. He doesn't have anyone he really cares about. In fact, he has a few friends who he's worked with who, that's how we know of Kai, is these friends of his. I believe, I can't remember who it was, but one of the previous heroes used to be in this military unit with him, this secret super soldier unit that he was in, but now he does this gun for hire situation. And in the beginning of this story, he has one of his jobs, and he knows basically he's going to get taken out by either the competition or for revenge. That is the life he's going to have. But he has no one who loves him and no one who will care. So he's like, I'm just going to make my money doing this. I'm good at this job. This is what they made me to be. Why would I do anything else? Well, he gets injured on one of his jobs, and basically, I wouldn't say he was completely left for dead, because he could have done something to leave this alley, but he's also just well, this is gonna be it. I'm just gonna let this be it, because he has no reason to live for. And then Nira happens to stumble across him. So Nira is, I think she's 19, 20 at the beginning of this, and she's actually a veterinary intern. Her father, who of course is a mafia don, or a capo, he might just be a capo, I'm not sure where he fits, but she's the eldest daughter. There's 2 daughters, and she's been allowed to go to college, and she's a veterinary intern, and she happens to be I think going home from work, and she stumbles across him in this alley. And he won't let her call an ambulance. He won't let her take her to the hospital. So she's like, well, I'm not just going to leave you to die. Okay, friends, I'm sorry. I don't know quite where that ended. I got a phone call and it was one I couldn't ignore. I talk about that in my Patreon vlogs, but there's someone I really needed to talk to and they just called me. So we had to take a filming break. Anyway, let's get back into the darkest sin. Okay, what was I saying? So anyway, Nira ends up taking Kai into the veterinary office and stitches him up a little bit. Okay, stitches him up a little bit. And then he ends up going on his way. All right. And now this leads him to, they don't share names with each other either. He starts calling her, like he gives her a nickname and I love it. Like she eventually starts calling him her devil and he calls her his little tiger cub because of something. And I just love it. Okay. He calls her cub and I've never been so into it to have someone like calling her, like, I don't know. It just worked for me. But anyway, so after she's healed him, he now like starts stalking her. So whenever he's not on a job, he will be watching her and protecting her and she can like feel him. There are also a couple of times, and this leads to one of the trigger warnings. So I'm going to tell you like, this is kind of self-harm. It's not done in the fashion of like, you know, it's not done in the way of like how harming yourself would normally be done, but Kai actually cuts himself so he has an excuse to get stitches from her. So he does this at 2 different times where he wants an excuse to talk to her and doesn't think he can just go up and say hi. And so there's one point where he cuts himself here, and there's another point where I can't remember where else he does it, but he cuts himself so that he can have her stitch him up. And this happens at a few different times over about a year span, I think, that he's following her. And there's a time when he saves her at a club when someone tries to get too frisky with her, and he murders the man in front of her. So this also is the bloodiest book in the series. Like Kai is almost soulless, okay? Like he's almost soulless. There's this one spark of humanity and interest in him, and it's for Nira. Nothing for anyone else, okay? Nothing. So they have this slow build. And again, it's a long time before he even knows her name. Not that he couldn't find it out, right? For a long time, he doesn't try to find it out because he's like, I don't want to know more about her. I just want to watch her. And he protects her as a thank you. And then he becomes fascinated. And the more interactions they have, the more she feels. So it's that thing. Like he's a stalker. He's a protective stalker. She has a rooftop like garden area where she'll go and like read, and he'll watch her from across the way. And he becomes obsessed with her. And slowly there's more that builds between them. So then there comes a time, and I don't want to say this entire thing, but where this like escalates, that's where I want to share. So you will get to watch them falling for each other and of course saying that they're not. She is still a mafia princess. As I said, her father is letting her be this veterinary assistant, this intern, but she's never meant to get to do it forever. And there comes a time where she's going to be forced into a marriage. And this is when like Kai can't deny his feelings anymore. Okay. However, there are forces that conspire against them. And that is where, if you read my Goodreads review for this, I say that there's 2 tropes I really don't like, and they're both in this book. So, yeah, both of those things happen here. And if you know, you'll know. And I will tell you, one of them, both of them, but it is a spoiler, but they are also the tropes. But I'm going to put up a spoiler warning because it's not out yet. Okay. Sorry. Lots of explaining, but let me just tell you first that this is a 5-star read for me. And if you just want to go in blind, if that's enough, you love Nival Taj, you can just go skip till when I hold up, the next book gets put up. But I'm going to do a little spoiler for this one to tell you those things and a little bit of like why I liked it. But I gave this 5 stars. It's a 3.5 on the spice scale. I enjoyed this couple so much, y'all. They were wonderful. There is, as I said, like there's self-inflicted wounds. I called it that instead of self-harm because again, he's not doing it with the purpose of like, I want to feel pain or anything. There's attempted SA, violence, gore, abuse and torture, all of those things. Okay. So now I'm putting up the spoiler tag. So this book, 2 of the tropes are secret baby and time jump, okay? Y'all know how I feel about those. However, this is within a mafia romance, which is usually where my exception lies, and it has to do with a forced separation, okay? Like, what happens to these two isn't because Kai just wants to ditch her or because she is tired of him. Like, there's a reason this happens. And when you read the prologue of this book, you know that this time jump happens, basically, because it has an interaction with them, and then it says 5 years ago. So I was aware that there was a part 1 and part 2. Like, I was aware this was going to happen. So I was prepared. I want to let you be prepared if you want to. But again, this is coming from Jenn, who really dislikes those 2 tropes. It's also coming from me, and I loved it. So you decide if you're willing to risk it or not. But to me, the way that Neva wrote this, there wasn't a way to not have this happen. Like, it was going to happen to them. And it's how they deal with it. And when Kai is able to be back in her life, the things he does to secure his place there were fantastic. I loved this. So then just the quick note I was going to say, in this book, we have book 10 set up, which I know already has a title. I don't know. I don't have a list anywhere, but this next one is going to be about Nira's older stepbrother, who will become the head of the mob eventually. And she has a younger sister. So it's her and her sister. And then they have an older, not a half brother. I'm sorry. No, older stepbrother. There's an older stepbrother, and her younger sister and him are the couple in the last one. That's why I need to clarify that they weren't half siblings, because her younger sister and so it's Zahara and Massimo are going to be the last couple in the series, and I am so hyped for theirs. Like, it's going to be forbidden, like stepbrother. He wasn't raised with them really at all. He's been in prison, so there's going to be some really interesting things there. So Neva just continues to up her game so much. So yeah, I enjoyed this. Okay. Moving along so everyone can join back in. So I read Rewrite Our Story by Kat Singleton. So this is a really pretty shiny copy of this. This is the, I think, fabled book box for it. Yeah. And this was sent to me by one of my viewers, sent it to me because I did have this on my, I had this on my TBR list. And they sent me a copy because they weren't interested in it. And that was so, so kind of them to do. Because this book is beautiful. However, I did not care for it. Who sent me that? I think Megan sent me this, actually. Let me just check. Yes, Megan M. sent this to me, my proud producer, who's always in my credits down below. That is my highest level of Patreon support. Megan, you're amazing. So she sent me this. And I'm sad to say I did not like this book. That, of course, is not Megan's fault. This story has some things I hate as well. This has some things I hate. And I feel that they were done very poorly as compared to the things I loved about Darkest Sin. This one involves a dual timeline. Like, it's not just even flashbacks, it's a dual timeline. So in this book, we have Cade and Marigold. Funny enough, I read 2 Marigolds this week, which was, I mean, that's a pretty unique name, which, again, I love this cover. I love how this looks. So, you know, beauty isn't everything, right? And we have Marigold and Cade, and she is his little sister's best friend. This is a farming one. He is a rancher, and she is an author, and they had a fling when they were young. There was a summer that they had a fling, and they were super into each other. It wasn't a forbidden romance, but they were kind of hiding it. Her mother died when she was young, and so she was very much loved and welcomed in by Cade and like his family, like her friend, the friend's mother really like brought her in, especially once the mom had died. And so there was a summer that these two had a fling, and then he chased her away basically because he wanted her to go live her dreams in the city. And she did, and she became an author, and now she's written a few books, and right now she's in the middle of, she's trying to write a duet. I don't always love when authors write authors, but whatever, it's fine. It's an occupation, right? It happens. But she ends up coming home to Sutton Mountain. I think Sutton Mountain's this series. Because the mother dies. So Cade and his sister's mother dies. So they're back. She's back for this funeral, and it's bringing up a lot of memories. And she ends up staying for a little while to just kind of be there for her friend. And of course, like, Cade hates her, and we don't know why, right? Now, I already said, right, like, he pushed her away. So that's what we find out. This whole time, we think this horrible thing happened. And again, this is a dual timeline, which I hate, because it's just as bad as flashbacks to me, because we're seeing them in present time and all of this tension, and like, he hates her and she doesn't want to be around him, and she like blames herself as well. We find out she's never been home since she left, and we don't know why. Okay, we don't know why. And the way that both Cade and even her friend like are mad at her and or disappointed that she's never been back makes you think that she did something horrible. Like, it makes you think that she did something bad, and that's the reason she's never been home. But in this dual timeline, which again, I don't like that, because we're watching her and him fall in love with each other again in the present time, as we're watching it fall apart in the other time. So I'm just, as I want to be falling in love with Cade, I'm getting pissed off at him in the other timeline. So it makes for a very unsatisfying thing when they finally get together in the present time, because I saw what an absolute jackass and gaslighting asshole that he was. Okay, this man is a gaslighter, and he's gotten his sister in on it too, because she's home, and they constantly are talking about how you never came back, you didn't care about us, you abandoned us, and now our mom's dead and you're home. And like, you know, her friend isn't being as hard about this, but her friend makes her feel guilty too. And just all these things, man. And when you see what really happened, the man chased her away. He broke her heart. He looked in her eyes and said he didn't love her, and said, you're better off leaving, right? And it's this white fang shit, because he thinks she'll be better off if she gets out of there and she'll go live her dreams, and chases her away, and then has the audacity, the whole-grained audacity, to blame her for never coming back to visit. You were the love of her young heart, and you told her you didn't love her and to never come back. And then you're mad that she never came back. Like, do you hear yourself, you jackass? I hated him so much. I did, and I was skimming by the end of it. But, like, I had this beautiful book I just wanted to love, and I also had bought the audio, so that was a waste of it. It was performed at least by Aaron Shedlock and CJ Bloom, so that wasn't the worst thing. But just, I hated that. I hate that. I hate that thing of like, I chased you away, but then how dare you stay gone? She was young, okay? It's not like this was a 30-year-old who's like, he is chasing me away for my own good. Like, this was a young woman who was in love with her best friend's brother, who she'd given her virginity to, who they'd spent all these days of passion together, and then he looked in her eyes and said, I don't love you. This was just a summer fling. Go live your life. Don't stay back for me. So whatever his reasons were for doing that, he never reached out. He never apologized. He never tried to make it good. And then he's pissed she never came home. So fuck you very much, Cade, okay? Fuck you very much. I got even more mad when I was talking about it again, because when I was reading it in the time, I just was like, I was working on a cross stitch, and, you know, so I'm listening to it, and every time I would hear him, like, try to have reasons why, like, she should have come back, and I was like, would I come back if you chased me away? I mean, yes, if you had a friend at home, and again, like, it's supposed to be like this mom who was her second mom, but like, they never came to visit her really, you know, like, he never tried to fix that, and then he's pissed that she didn't come back. Like, why? Why would you? Why would you? So this ended up at a 3-star, mostly because I did finish it. But honestly, you just saw how heated. I probably should have given it less stars. But it was a 3.5 on the spice scale. It was pretty sexy, I guess. Trigger warnings are death of a loved one and grief. And yeah, literally, I'm like, he's the one who broke her heart. He doesn't get to be all pissy about it now. Like, fuck off. Fuck off. Okay, moving right along. So after reading An Escort's Tale, as well as Hills and Shivers and Shadows, which isn't fully at this point yet, okay, I'll admit. I wanted to read an MMF. I wanted to read another Menage, okay? Again, Hills and Shivers and Shadows isn't fully an MMF yet. It will be, though. It will be. I have some on my TV, like on my Kindle, that I have purchased for a rainy day. For just such an occasion as I would like to read some MMF, I happen to have a series saved called Missing Link. And this is by Lynn Burke, who I haven't read many of her works lately, but there was a time when I had read like pretty much everything she'd written. She writes erotic romance. She's written some survival romances that I really love. They're like dark erotic romances, as well as she's written some MMFs I've read before. And so she has taboo romance too. She has some priest romances. Like she's got spicy gay priest romances. Like she's got the goods. And so this series, Missing Link, is a series where they're all going to be menages, are all going to be MMFs, and it revolves around this app that is for couples to find singles. Now, it doesn't have to be a gay couple looking for, or a bisexual couple looking, but it's, you know, is it two women looking for a third woman, two men looking for a woman? Like, all of the options are on this app. And our heroine, Lily, happens to have just gotten out of a relationship with an ex who cheated on her with a man. And so she wants to hook up with two guys who aren't into each other, but would be into her. So yeah, she wants to use this app as a hookup app basically, and wants to, you know, kind of have like this like cleansing experience of being with two men who aren't going to leave her for each other. They're going to be all about her. She wants to be the center of attention, okay? It's a bit of a weak premise to start it out with, but it's also kind of hot. And we just so happen to have Blaine and Grayson, who are roommates. Now, Grayson is bisexual, Blaine is straight. Blaine also has a lot of sexual trauma. So he was in a cult. There's a cult that features heavily in the series. I think a lot of characters are going to be from that cult, from what I see. And it was a religious cult, and there was some childhood essay that happened and some other things. So, and he was actually abused by a woman. So he feels that he's straight, but he's also very uncomfortable being alone with a woman. So his roommate, being bisexual, finds women that they can share. So the roommate, Grayson, he's into Blaine. He is. He's in love with his roommate, but he knows that he's never going to want anything sexual with him. So the best way that he can be with him is if they share a woman, and then they will, you know, have an MFM scenario with her. And that helps Blaine get to have sex and be with a woman, but also he feels kind of protected having his friend being there doing it with them. Does that make sense? I thought this was a super unique setup for it, because I was like, wow, that is a look at trauma that I haven't seen before. What an interesting reason to want to have a threesome, right? To want to have an MFM situation. And I don't know, I was kind of fascinated by it. So, but what ends up happening too is that Lily ends up talking to Grayson through the app. And then she actually meets Blaine at her job. So she's seeing both of these guys, not realizing that this is like that Grayson is the guy, like, and Blaine's the one that they might have a threesome with. But she's seeing multiple people. She can do that. It doesn't feel weird in the story because they're upfront that they're seeing other people too. They're trying to set up a sexual liaison, not necessarily a relationship, you know. But when they find out, you know, like, I can't remember who is doing what, but one of them is going to introduce her to the roommate. And she discovers that, oh, it's this guy I already like. So they have that initial like threesome or whatever. And it's clear to Lily that these two actually are interested in each other. But this time though, instead of feeling like cheated on, whereas she was dating a man who cheated on her with a man, she's like there to see this relationship grow between the two of them. And Blaine throughout this starts to discover that not only is he attracted to Grayson, but honestly, it's the perfect solution because he's the man he trusts the most. So they do start to experiment sexually together too. So this was really beautiful. There was a lot that I loved. I love that kind of dynamic of, you know, sex helping with trauma as well as experiencing things. Like, I love that stuff. I'm here for it. The thing that brought the story down a little bit was a lot of the extra stuff. Like, I was okay with us exploring like why he has the trauma and all this, but again, it might be because we're setting up this series. That's kind of what I'm getting from the reviews that I've seen, because we are introduced to a lot of the other people that I think will be in the other Missing Link books, but it just really bogged down this story, and I wanted to spend more time with Lily Grain. That's their couple name. Lily, Grayson, and Blaine, and we didn't get as much. So I did give this one 3.5 stars. It was a 4 on the spice scale. We do have, of course, sharing. There are MMF scenes as well as MFM scenes. There is DVP at one point. So, yeah. So I still like this. There are the trigger warnings, as I said, of past childhood SA. Yeah, some of that. So I will absolutely be continuing the series. And as I said, I have this on my Kindle. I've purchased the first 2 books in the series already. So I will continue this when I'm ready for another MMF. Okay, then we have kind of a, oh, I guess we are almost done. We're almost caught up. So I did my reread of Hello Stranger by Lisa Kleypas. I am annotating some books by Lisa Kleypas for one of my patrons. So this one is book 4 in the Ravenel series. And this one's kind of fun because it's about one of the Ravenel adjacent people. So we have Garrett Gibson. Is it Garrett Gibson? No, I just forget. Yeah, Dr. Garrett Gibson. We meet her early in the series. She actually is a full-time physician for Winterbourne, who owns the department stores and a bunch of, businesses. And he actually has a medical staff to, help, because he's like, if my workers and my people, they have housing and they have a doctor they can go to, keeps them healthier and happier and makes my businesses work better. He's a very progressive businessman. We love Winterbourne. We absolutely do. He's shrewd, but he also is smart. And Gibson was hired by him back earlier in the series, and she's just become a very vital part, and she's really won over people with her knowledge and things like that. She's actually based on a real woman, which is just wonderful. I love when we can find those little pieces of fact in the historical, right? And then the way this is Ravenel adjacent, not only is she acquaintances with them, we've seen her help with different, like pregnancy and illnesses they've had. But we have Ethan Ransom, who is a Ravenel bastard, is a Ravenel born on the wrong side of the blanket, as it were, and actually is the oldest one, at least of who we have left right now, because there was an older brother, but he's the dead one, right? Or an older cousin, but he's the dead one, yeah. And he is actually, like, he knows who he is, so he's always had a kind of an animosity for the Ravenels, of course, but also he's been doing some undercover work. He's been trying to break up different anarchy plots and things like that. And yeah, and he is about to go into a very dangerous situation. So he kind of sees himself as like having a shortened time. But him and Garrett are very attracted to each other, and he just can't seem to stay away. And he knows it's a bad idea to fall for her, get involved with her, but he's obsessed with her. He wants her. But then something horrible happens to him, and Garrett has to do everything that she possibly can to keep him alive. And if she keeps him alive, he's not ever going to leave her again, because she'll have earned him for herself, right? So of course, it was just wonderful to revisit this one. This is 4.5 stars. It's a 2.5 on the spice scale. Ethan can get down, y'all. Ethan can get down for sure. Trigger warnings for violence, surgery, and like medical situations and descriptions. There's a couple kind of like graphic things that she has to do, but it's in the form of that. I will say, I also was reading some Outlander, which we'll get to in a moment, and there are definitely parts of Garrett that reminded me of Claire, and I really like that a lot. Okay, I also read an arc of Slay by Abby Glines. I've never read an Abby Glines before that I can recall or that I can see in my notes, so this is the first one. Also, I'm not sure which PR company I got this from, because when I got the download for the arc, usually once you get that, there's either a note from the PR team you got it from and or a follow-up email that says we've sent you this arc. I don't know who sent me this. And this was before I started tracking my arcs. I just recently started doing that, and it honestly has saved me so much. It's amazing. I highly recommend you track your arcs. It's brilliant. But I don't know how I got this one. So I know it comes out on, I think, Wednesday. Actually, let me check. It might be Monday. Let me look. I think it comes out on the 27th. So that would be Monday. Maybe. Either way, this is a cowboy mafia romance, and I'll get into it in a second. But anyway, I have no idea who sent it to me, but I know it's an arc, and I know it comes out at this. So I read it, and I have a review for it, and I'm sure there'll be an email that comes eventually that asks, hey, time to review, and then I'll know who sent it to me. But I'm pretty sure I signed up for it with the author agency or one of the other ones, because I remember this cover and being like, this reminds me of the Trails of Sin series, and I was like, I want to read it. So anyway, in this, we have Rumor, who has an abusive husband, and this was reminding me of Alive and Wells as well. It definitely gave me vibes of that book, which I read last week. And Rumor, in the beginning of this, she has an abusive husband, and in the beginning of the story, he owes some debt to a mafia. We don't know who it is in the beginning, but it happens to be that he gets shot and they want his money, and she hides in the closet and waits till they leave, and then she takes some money and leaves him. Doesn't even know if her husband's dead, but she's like, you know what? I am taking this chance that either he's dead or he's injured and I can run. So she steals some money and she goes on the run from him, never planning to return. So she doesn't make it too far, and she gets kind of stuck at this truck stop and doesn't know who to trust. And she happens to meet this man named King, and King offers her to get her a safe place. And she really has no choice, okay? This dude is a hot, sexy cowboy. She's like, are you going to hurt me? And he's like, baby, I don't need to hurt women to get what I want. And I was like, that doesn't mean anything. But anyway, she doesn't have a choice, so she ends up going with him. Sure enough, he starts taking her somewhere that isn't to the next town. He takes her to his ranch, where him and his grandmother offer her a place to stay. So there's this whole ranch, what's the series called? Did I write this down somewhere? Georgia Smoke series, which I guess is a spin-off of another Southern Mafia series. So this is a Southern Mafia, but they look like cowboys. So there's this ranch there, which isn't all that, which is more than it seems, right? But the Mama, I think that's how we say that, or Mama, she offers Rumor a place to stay and says, you have no other place to go. You're actually like a wanted woman. Your picture's out there. Your husband's disappeared. If you go, like, they're going to get you. The people after your husband might be coming to get you, right? And she's like, but I don't have anything. They're like, they don't know that. Well, what Rumor doesn't know is that King didn't find her by accident. And we get hints about this. We get hints about this in his POV, that he was following her to that truck stop and that his job was to get her home with him. And his job is to entertain her and maybe even start a sexy relationship with her to keep her complacent. And not in as sinister a way as that sounds, but the mafia that her husband owed money to is none other than the Southern Mafia and King's family. So they didn't take her for nefarious reasons. They really didn't. They don't hurt women like that. But they knew she had nowhere to go. And when he saw that she was, she comes in with like broken ribs and her face is ruined, they just want to take care of her. They honestly do. But yeah, there's more layers to that. And obviously, again, she doesn't know that they're the mafia that did all this. So there is that mystery that's happening. So I had a good time with this book. I really did. As I said, I never read this author before. I didn't know what to expect, but I read the blurb of this and I wanted it. This is the first part in a duet, but the second part is coming in just 2 weeks. I believe the second part is out on April 9th. So I'm going to read the next part as soon as it's available too. So yeah, I liked this a lot. I gave it 4 stars. It is pretty short, but even for being short, I felt like there was a lot of wasted time. Like there's a big section of this book where nothing's really happening, and like it's only 280 pages. So I'm like, why didn't we use that more efficiently? Or my biggest sin, why couldn't it have just been one book then? Like if you didn't have enough content to make this full, why is it 2 parts when you could have just done one? But I liked it enough. I'm not going to super slam it. And I love a cowboy mafia. I love a unique take on that. So I gave this a 4 star. We'll see how I feel when I read the second half, which will really determine how I feel about it as a whole, of course. So, because there is a cliffhanger on this one, but I'm excited for the next part. So I gave it 4 stars of the 3 on the spice scale. King also is into some BDSM, which the way that we deal with that in this was very interesting because of her past trauma. She definitely is kind of intimidated by when she sees him doing BDSM with someone at one point. So I like how we handled that in here as well. I always love that stuff. So again, trigger warnings for domestic abuse, torture, and violence. We'll see. Okay, time to wrap this up. Wow, we haven't had a video this long in quite a while, even with the little break in the middle there. But I won't have much to say here because it was my reread of Dragonfly and Amber. Finished this, cried like a baby yesterday. So much crying. My period just ended, and I put a story up on my Instagram that you think after, you know, 8 or so years of reading the books in this series, I would know to not read Outlander when I'm on my period, but I cried so much. Y'all, I cried so much. So the live show for this will be, I think, next Saturday. I believe it's the 30th, and we'll be talking about Dragonfly and Amber. So if you've already read the books and want to join book club, or you're working your way through these, last month was so fun. I haven't announced when the live show is for Voyager yet, but once we have this one, I will announce the next one, which for sure it will be in May. I just don't know when yet, because like I said, I've spread these out every 6 weeks. So that being said, it's still not too late for you to join in on this book club, because you know, you have 6 weeks to read 3 books. You could do it. You absolutely could do it. Catch up with us at any time. And there's already the live show for the first one that's saved, and this one will be saved as well. I have a Discord server, which is always, my Discord is always linked in the description, where you can, you know, talk through some discussion questions or leave your impressions or things as you read it. And that's just been the funnest thing. It's been so great. So yeah, also if you want to purchase any of these books I talked about, pre-order some of the ones I was gushing about, there are links to all those down below, as well to my Etsy shop, ways you can support the channel. I do this full time. Taxes is next month, so it's like, this business does cost something to do. So I really appreciate all the support that I get. Even just watching this and liking this, commenting on which books you read, all of that helps. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.